Hello everybody, here it is, Independent Study Packet Video, Calc 2. Please remember that if the material in this video is going too fast or too slow, you can always pause, rewind, or fast forward. Here is a math tip before we continue. Root x times root x is equal to the square root of x squared, which is just x. Similarly, root 5x times root 5x is the square root of 5x squared. So again, the square and the square root cancel, we'll get 5x. Finally, root 1 minus x squared times root 1 minus x squared is root 1 minus x squared squared. The square and the square root cancel, we'll get 1 minus x squared. Okay, number 1. It says show that the square root of x times 6x plus 1/2 times x to the negative 1/2 times the quantity 2 plus 3x squared is equivalent to this. First, it might be helpful to rewrite our expression so that we have denominators. So that's why I put everything over 1. Next, I'm noticing that we can rewrite x to the negative 1/2. So we can throw that into the denominator and make the exponent positive. Therefore, we have root x times 6x divided by 1 plus, in the numerator we have 2 plus 3x squared, and in the denominator we have 2 times x to the 1/2. Now, x to the 1/2 means the square root of x. So therefore, we have this. Ding, 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 ding. Now, in order to add fractions, we need a common denominator. In this case, the least common denominator is 2 root x. So we need to multiply the first fraction by 2 root x over 2 root x. Remember that root x times root x is x. So therefore, we have the following. We have 2x times 6x divided by 2 root x. And over here, we have 2 plus 3x squared divided by 2 root x. Since we have a common denominator, we can bring the fraction together. In the numerator, we have 12x squared plus 2 plus 3x squared, all divided by 2 root x. Now, in the numerator, we can combine our like terms. 15x squared plus 2 divided by 2 root x. We can see that that's what we wanted, so therefore we're correct. Okay, let's skip to number 3. We are about to show that 1 plus 4x squared times 5/2 times 5x to the negative 1/2 minus 8x times the square root of 5x is equivalent to this wonderful thing right here. Again, it's helpful to rewrite with denominators. Now check this out right here. That is equivalent to 5 times 5x to the negative 1/2 divided by 2. And that's because we have 5x to the negative 1/2 over 1. Okay, we need to rewrite this negative exponent. So bring it to the denominator and make the exponent positive. That means we have 1 plus 4x squared divided by 1 times 5 divided by 2, we have times 5x to the 1/2 power. We're still subtracting all of this stuff over here. This means the square root of 5x. So now we're going to rewrite. In the numerator, we have 5 times 1 plus 4x squared. And in the denominator, we have 2 radical 5x. We're still subtracting all of this stuff over here. In order to add fractions, we need a least common denominator. In this case, the least common denominator is 2 root 5x. So we need to multiply the second fraction by 2 root 5x over 2 root 5x. Remember that root 5x times root 5x is equal to 5x. Okay, I'm going to skip a step here. Since we have common denominators, we can bring the fraction together. The denominator will be 2 root 5x. In the numerator, we'll have 5 plus 20x squared minus, here's 8x times 2 times 5x. Therefore, we can see that we're subtracting 80x squared. So, when we combine our like terms in the numerator, we get 5 minus 60x squared, all divided by 2 root 5x, which is what we want. Okay, let's skip down to number 5. It says simplify the quantity root 3x minus 5 times 3 minus 3 halves times 3x to the negative 1/2 all times 3x to obtain this thing right here. Now there are a number of ways that we can think about this problem. It's always helpful to rewrite our expression with denominators. At this point, it's very helpful to notice that we have 3x to the negative 1/2 times 3x to the first. Same base, add the exponents. So if we had noticed that, we would have gotten 3 times root 3x minus 5 minus 3 halves, same base, add the exponents to get 1/2. Now we can distribute and rewrite this. We'll get 3 root 3x minus 15 minus 3 halves root 3x. Right here we have like terms that need to be combined. So 3 root 3x minus 3 halves root 3x is 3 halves root 3x. And we still have a minus 15. That's what we want. Now, suppose that you didn't notice that you have same bases here and that you could have just added these exponents. Well, then you might use the procedure that we did in the other two problems. First, rewrite the expression so that we have denominators. Next, rewrite 3x to the negative 1/2. So throw the 3x in the denominator and make the exponent positive. We would obtain this. To subtract these fractions, we need a least common denominator. In this case, the least common denominator is 2 times root 3x. So multiply the numerator and the denominator of the first fraction by 2 root 3x. 2 times 3 is 6. So we have 6 root 3x times the quantity root 3x minus 5 divided by 2 root 3x minus 9x divided by 2 root 3x. Now we should distribute over here. Remember, root 3x times root 3x is 3x. So therefore, we will get 6 times 3x minus 30 root 3x divided by 2 root 3x. We're still subtracting 9x divided by 2 root 3x. Okay, we have a common denominator, so we can bring the fraction together. That's 18x minus 30 root 3x minus a 9x. We can also combine like terms in the numerator. We will obtain this. Now at this point, in order to obtain what we want, we would have to break the fraction apart. That's the same thing as 9x divided by 2 root 3x minus 30 root 3x divided by 2 root 3x. In order to get what we want, we would have to make a creative move right here. And we'd have to notice that 9x is the same thing as 3 times 3x divided by 2 root 3x. That way, we're giving ourselves same base. We still have minus 30 root 3x divided by 2 root 3x. Okay, so time to simplify all this. We have 3 times 3x to the first divided by 2 times 3x to the 1/2. Over here we can see that 30 divided by 2 is 15, and the root 3x's will cancel. Same base, subtract exponents. 1 minus 1/2 is 1/2. So we have 3/2 times same base, subtract the exponents to get 1/2. We still have a minus 15. So that gives us what we want. 3/2 times root 3x minus 15. Okay, let's move along to number 7. It says simplify this complex fraction in order to obtain this. First, it's helpful to rewrite so that we have denominators. So I put a bunch of things over 1. Next, I see that we have an x to the negative 1/2, so we should rewrite that. Throw the x into the denominator and make sure that the exponent becomes positive. So by rewriting, we obtain this. Ding, 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 ding. Notice that I skipped a few steps right now. X to the negative 1/2, I put the square root of x in the denominator. And I also distributed right here. 4 times 5 is 20. We still have an x and a square root of x. Now, by distributing the 5 into the numerator, we can simplify a little bit further. We will obtain this. Ding, 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 ding. When simplifying a complex fraction, we can multiply the numerator and the denominator by the least common denominator, which is 2 root x. So in this case, we're going to multiply the entire numerator by 2 root x, and we're going to multiply the entire denominator by 2 root x. When we distribute, there should be a lot of cancellation. So in the first fraction, 2 root x and 2 root x here should cancel. We will get 10x squared plus 5. Over here, when we distribute, we see that 20 times 2 is 40, so we have minus 40. Root x times root x is x, but we still have this x term to multiply as well, so that will be x squared. In the denominator, it says 2 root x times 2x squared plus 1 squared. Finally, we can combine like terms in the numerator to get what we want. Boom! There it is. Finally, I just noticed that there's a mistake in the study packet. So where it says to obtain, make sure that you put a squared right here. Finally, for one more practice example, we will do number 8. First, I would recommend throwing in your denominators, so I'm putting a bunch of divided by 1s. Next, rewrite this negative exponent. We will obtain this. Rewrite again now to simplify this portion over here. Now we will get this. In order to simplify this complex fraction, multiply the numerator and the denominator by the least common denominator. So we will multiply the entire numerator by 2 root x, and we will multiply the denominator by 2 root x. Now we can distribute. Remember, root x times root x is x. So we will get 2x. When we continue to distribute, we'll notice that 2 root x and 2 root x cancel. So we're left with minus the quantity x minus 2. We have to subtract this entire quantity x minus 2. In the denominator, it literally says 2, there's an x, and times root x. Now distribute the negative. Finally, combine the like terms in the numerator to get x plus 2 divided by 2x root x, which, if you look at the problem, is what we want. Okay, please use this information to complete the rest of the Calc 2 section, and now you should be ready to move on to the Calc 3 section.